The storm raged outside, violent winds lashing against the old, decrepit structure. Emily's flashlight flickered as she stepped through the door of the abandoned shelter. The place was infamous in the small town of Ashwood. Locals whispered tales of people entering and never returning, of strange sounds emanating from within on stormy nights. But Emily, an avid urban explorer with a penchant for the macabre, had dismissed such stories as mere folklore. The shelter's air was thick with dust, and the smell of mildew clung to every corner. Peeling paint hung from the walls like dead skin, and the faint sound of dripping water echoed ominously through the halls. She glanced around, her flashlight beam illuminating a series of old posters and notices on the walls. Some were weathered to illegibility, but others were chillingly intact. One, in particular, caught her eye. In the event of an emergency, remain calm and await instructions. Do not wander. The final words were underlined in bold red ink, almost as if written by hand. Emily's lips curled into a half-smile. How ominous, she muttered to herself, snapping a picture with her phone. Deeper she ventured into the shelter, her footsteps crunching against scattered debris. The place seemed larger than it had appeared from the outside. The narrow hallways twisted and turned, leading to rooms filled with rusted bunk beds, long-forgotten supplies, and eerie silence. Each step brought her further from the storm but closer to a growing sense of unease. It wasn't just the shelter's desolation. It was something intangible, a feeling that the building itself was alive and watching her every move. In one of the rooms, she found a journal lying open on a table. The handwriting was frantic, slanted, and hurried. Day 34. Supplies are running low. The others have started hearing it too. The whispers. They come at night, slipping through the cracks in the walls. We locked the doors, but it's no use. It's already inside. Emily's brow furrowed. Her fingers trembled slightly as she turned the page, but the rest of the journal was blank. She glanced around, the beam of her flashlight darting across the room. For a moment, she thought she heard something, a faint shuffling sound. Her breath caught, and she held still, straining to listen. The silence returned, heavy and oppressive. Shaking it off, Emily pressed forward. She reached a stairwell leading to the lower levels. The stairs groaned under her weight as she descended, the air growing colder with each step. The walls here were lined with strange markings, scratched into the concrete. Symbols she didn't recognize, interspersed with what looked like tally marks. Hundreds of them. At the bottom of the stairs, she found a metal door slightly ajar. The words, "Authorized personnel only," were stenciled across it in faded paint. Against her better judgment, she pushed it open and stepped inside. The room beyond was vast and dark, the flashlight barely illuminating its boundaries. Rows of empty chairs faced a large screen on the far wall, as if this had once been a briefing room. But the screen was cracked, and the chairs were overturned, some broken. And then she heard it. A whisper. Faint, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable. It wasn't a word, just a sound, like the soft rustling of leaves in the wind. Her heart pounded as she swung the flashlight in every direction, the beam slicing through the darkness. "Hello," she called, her voice trembling. The whispering stopped. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her. Emily screamed, running to it and pulling at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Panic set in as she banged on the door, shouting for help. The whispers returned, louder this time, coming from all around her. They weren't alone anymore. They were joined by the faint sound of footsteps. Emily backed away from the door, her flashlight shaking in her grip. The beam caught movement in the corner of the room, a shadow that darted out of sight before she could fully see it. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice breaking. The whispers grew louder, coalescing into a single, chilling phrase. "You shouldn't have come." Emily's flashlight flickered and died, plunging her into darkness. She fumbled for her phone, turning on its light, but the battery drained almost instantly, leaving her with nothing but the oppressive blackness and the sound of the whispers. They were closer now, almost breathing into her ear. And then, she felt it. A cold, bony hand gripping her shoulder. She screamed, spinning around, but there was nothing there. The whispers turned into guttural growls, and the air seemed to vibrate with malice. Something brushed past her, unseen but tangible, and she bolted blindly through the room, hands outstretched, searching for an exit. Her fingers found a door handle, and she yanked it open, stumbling into another corridor. The whispers followed her, growing louder with each step. She ran, turning corners at random, the shelter's layout a disorienting maze. Every door she tried was locked, and every turn seemed to lead her back to the same place. The metal door she had entered. Desperate, Emily collapsed against the wall, sobbing. The whispers surrounded her now, overlapping, incomprehensible yet filled with menace. The air grew colder, her breath visible in the dim light of her failing flashlight. She realized with dawning horror that the shelter wasn't abandoned. It was a trap. The last thing she saw before the light finally gave out was a figure emerging from the darkness, its hollow eyes reflecting her terror. When the storm passed, the shelter stood silent once more, its secrets buried in shadow. Days later, Emily's car was found abandoned near the forest edge, but she was never seen again. Locals added her name to the growing list of those claimed by the Hollow Refuge, and the whispers continued to echo on stormy nights, waiting for the next unfortunate soul to wander in.